All right, we're here with the second episode of the official, and I say official, LOL podcast. Before we get started, though, I'd like to give a special shout out to Michelle Saddam. We dedicate this episode to you, and we hope you're feeling happy and healthy, you and baby. But we're going to get straight into LOL football. We're all business here. So the first thing we're going to discuss, obviously, the commissioner's big press conference was a hot topic of discussion. We're going to get into that. The commissioner made it very clear that he was a little bit upset about some of the stuff going down, and he laid down the law. He put down the hammer. The thing that surprised me the most, though, was how he discussed how he contemplated retirement. I spoke to Justin O'Shea, the Players Association president, after that press conference, and he said Frank Samisa was indeed very close to retirement. That was not made up. That was very real, and they were able to have a discussion to get him out of that mindset, which we're all happy about. It would not be the same without him. But I think he laid down the law, and I think it was 100% necessary. Now, the reason he had to is what we'll talk about next, which was Sunday's scrimmages, our point totals leaders. Here we go. The Poospatuck Smokes with 17 points. The Neighborhood Roadies with 13 points. The Mothmen with 2 points, and Team Tully has been amended from 0 points to 1 point, as Ian Tully did score his touchdown. So early impressions of what we saw out there was that the Smokes are dominant right now on the offensive side of the ball, but what they're doing on defense is what we have to talk about. 2 interceptions last week from Jesus. This week, 2 interceptions from Gerasi, an interception from Dan O'Shea. If this defense can match the intensity of that offense, this team is going to be very serious for a very long time. What we saw out of the Roadies, unbelievable change. We've known the Roadies to be a dink and dunk offense for 2 years with Nick Gerasi at the helm. Nick Delmonte will have none of it as he attacked 30, 40 yards downfield all day long. Their offense was stretching the field, and it was very, very hard to keep up with. Nick Muse got involved deep. Justin O'Shea obviously involved deep. Dan Escobar challenged deep. Everybody ran deep. Everybody got shots. Total philosophy change from this team. What we saw out of the Mothmen was regression. It was very obvious that Renzo was missing number 1 target, John Macca, and it was very obvious that Holmes was missing his number 1 defender in John Macca, as the team was blitzed and burned all day on both sides of the ball. This is reflected in the standings, and I got to be honest with you, unless Renzo is able to get the ball out before 5 Mississippi, we're going to see a lot more of this from that team. He has to fix that. He can't sit that back there all day and not make decisions. I know he wasn't rushed at all in week 1, so he maybe felt like he could sit back there all day going into week 2. Not the case. Justin O'Shea switched to D-line solely with the purpose of disrupting Renzo, and it worked out perfectly. All right, because you see here that I'm not joined by Jerry Jurgensen, I'm not joined by Peter Hard, we're going to have a little bit extra time for guests today, so we're going to have 2 guests today. You're going to see Coach Nick Muse, coach of the Neighborhood Roadies. He's going to be here. And in the later segment, we're going to have Kevin McCarthy, starting center for the Poospatuck Smokes. He's actually more than just the center. He's the Swiss Army knife, and we're going to ask him all about that. And that's it for segment 1 here. We'll be right back.
Come on, when it comes to the biggest, yeah, I got to take credit. All challengers, forget it, got head like lettuce. Gangsta is the first name, Frank is the second. But y'all already knew it, I'm a goddamn
All right,
legend.
we're back. The official LOL podcast. I'm joined here by Coach Nick Muse, the shoebox himself. Coach of the Neighborhood Roadies. Are you happy to be here?
Pleasure to be here, man.
All right, we're going to get straight into it. We're all business here always. This is your 3rd year piloting the Roadies. Tell me about this roster in comparison to the last few rosters.
Yeah, man. So the Neighborhood Roadies kind of started out with a core philosophy, right, of sort of pitting the underdogs against the greats, you know.
Yeah.
And that was always a mission. And to win a championship without Frank Samisa is always been like an important, goal of ours. There's a lot of good chemistry there on the previous roster, and I think that time on the Roadies had made a lot of those players more lucrative to other teams, and it's great to see those guys kind of go on to do bigger things in their careers. I can work with those guys, but this year I wanted to challenge myself with a new cast of characters. So you don't draft a guy like Justin O'Shea and not defer to him to what he thinks is going to be a good team, and I trust his vision.
How could you not? He's one of the greatest players of all time. Was there a tough decision-making process involved with that second overall pick going Justin O'Shea? I know, obviously, you're very close with JJ. There's plenty of players that were on your board. Was it a no-brainer, or did it take a little bit of time?
It's a tough call, man, because I'd love to play with JJ again, and I will play with JJ again.
Sure.
But I think this year was about a shakeup for me.
Sure.
I know I'm successful with those guys. I know if I bring JJ on this team, he's going to bring down ungodly balls.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try something different, and that was the goal this year.
It's so far after this week too. I see the vision and it's paying off. Now tell me a little bit about this new style of offense, this deep passing attack. We've seen Nick Gerasi at the helm before. I spoke a little bit earlier about it. He was historically a short guy, crossing routes guy. Now we see Nick Delmonte back there, and this guy is challenging deep, whether it's left, right, middle. He's going with the long ball. Is that a philosophy shift, or is this just the way Nick Delmonte plays the game?
Yeah, I don't want it to be looked at as like a measurement of strength. You know what I mean? It's the way I see it is two completely different styles, and the players around them are gonna adapt to that. And that's the style of football I think I want to play this year too. Is bring down deep balls and throw the dice a little bit. But the short style offense is effective. And Gerasi brought us within a hair of a championship, arguably 2 times.
Twice.
It wasn't a conscious decision, but the way it's just the way the draft went, and I think Delmonte ended up being the obvious choice.
Tell me a little bit about the decision-making process of Delmonte being the starting quarterback. Obviously, 2 weeks ago we saw Ken Silver get reps, we saw Justin O'Shea get reps. Delmonte didn't. What made his repless scrimmage obvious to you, this is our quarterback?
The roadies are kind of like a slow cooker situation. I got to get in there. I got to feel the chemistry out. We tried Ken out for a little bit. Justin wasn't going to be an option. I need Justin as a receiver.
The best.
Yeah, there's no way we were going to go in there week 1 looking like a total game plan, had been planned out. I got to get in there. I got to see what these guys can do. I can see how they jive with each other. Next week we might go with someone else. I don't know. Yeah. It's just
I'm not holding you to it. Yeah. I promise. Now tell me about Nick Delmonte in the huddle. So, is he calm? Is he cool? Is he collected? Was he the voice of reason back there? This is his first time as a quarterback. I'd like to know what he's like back behind the scenes.
Oh, behind the scenes, man. Delmonte is very easy to work with. I think he is very calm on the field. Like, we talk a lot of game in the chat, but I think all this drama surrounding Ken and Delmonte and maybe even me.
Do you think that was more of the media than anything else? Was that kind of media made?
No, that's something that we had planned internally.
Sure.
To kind of.
I mean, I'm not going to call you a liar. I never would. But Delmonte's disdain on draft night seemed to be pretty real. If it wasn't, he's got a job in acting lined up very soon after his career in football's over.
Fair enough, man. I mean, restraining orders aside, Ken and Delmonte, they're getting along great.
Tell me a little bit, as we get in the time machine, about that first-round matchup last year with Team Tully. It went 2 overtimes. It's been talked about as the greatest game ever played. Tell me a little bit about what it was like to be not just a part of that game on the field, but tell me what it was like to be on the short end of it and just your general view.
I didn't even come out of that feeling like we were on the short end of it. That was a total slugfest, and that was arguably the championship game that year. And I felt when we left that, man, I felt like we had gone to the championship, and that was good enough for me. Maybe not good enough for the guys playing for me, but I felt accomplished coming off there. And there's a lot of components of that game that were just phenomenal. The snow and
of course,
and it might have been a little over litigious, but when I'm out there and I got to be coach for my guys, I got a role to play. So
in that game, talk a little bit about what happened when Nick Delmonte goes in for the go-ahead touchdown to make it the final score of 5-4 or 6-5. I'm not positive, but Nick Delmonte goes in rushing touchdown right side.
Was it 7-6? It was double overtime.
I think, so I think it would have been 5-6.
Mm-hmm, 5-6. Yeah, 6.
So Nick Delmonte goes in right side rushing touchdown. You guys get the ball back. It's either score or go home, and Nick Gerasi gets you past the first down marker. It's 3 straight deep shots after that. It ends up not going your way. Tell me about that last play, that 4th down. That ball's in the air. It's either intended for Mike C or JJ. The film doesn't really make it clear, but tell me about what it was like seeing that ball go up in the air and the aftermath of that.
Oh man, I was just happy it was all over. I mean, my legs were jello after that game, dude. That was something else. But no, I wasn't disappointed with any specific play or anything like that.
No, there's no play to take away.
The plays themselves are just a reflection of what we bring as a team, and we are a bit chaotic out there. That roster was a bit chaotic, that core, and that was our style, and it was effective for what it was. So I can't be mad at that style being brought up to the very end. It was
in a game that tight. It's easy to sit here and say one play cost you this, one play cost you that, but
right.
But all in all, you guys put 5 points up on the board. It's tough to do much better. All right, 2 more before I let you get out of here. How much contact have you had with Johnny Vega?
Who?
Correct. The last question.
Nah, Johnny. He's all right. He's backseat driving it, and it's helpful.
Sure. Was he ever
I would, Johnny, if you're listening, I'd like to see more of you. But
was Johnny in consideration for quarterback the last couple of weeks?
No. On the stipulation that he'd be willing to be the quarterback, I would consider it, but I can't do that to everybody else on the team.
Understood. Before I let you go, same question I ask everybody here. Tell me about 10 years of LOL football and what it's meant to you.
Oh man, I don't know. It's just cool. It's cool to be doing this with people that I've known since before high school, and I don't think a lot of people can say that they're in touch with people like that to this magnitude.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable the way it's gone on for as long as it is. We want to thank you for being on the show. We want to thank you for the hard work and dedication you've given to the league, not just as a coach and as a player, but your work on the website is always appreciated, and it's great for us fans to be able to check out everything LOL, so we really appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break. You'll hear from our sponsor, but we'll be right back with an interview. Kevin McCarthy. Thank you again.
Sweet, man. Thank you.
Security cameras try to clock me and stop me. Mitt Romney, cops, cockkeeper, they not the fastest. My drastic cashless slash to the basket where cash and hash stashed.
What's up, guys? It's Coach Holmes again. Do you love great Italian food? Shit, I do. Veal, pasta, pizza, prosciutto. It gets me hard just thinking about it. Well, I'm here to let you in on a little secret. My favorite place to eat, Cucina Family Style Restaurant in East Quogue. They're a family-run establishment that's been passed down for generations. They serve the finest Italian cuisine in family-style portions. And it gets better. Ask for Mr. Nino, tell him Coach Holmes sent you for 50% off. That's Cucina Family Style Restaurant in East Quogue. When you're here, you're here.
All right, we're back with the official LOL podcast. I am Frankie Nuñez, and I'm here with Kevin McCarthy, starting center for the Pushpatuck Smokes. Here we go.
What's up,
Kev,
Frankie?
we're going to get straight into action. Are you happy to be here?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Before I get into these questions I have for you, I want to know what you thought about our top story of the day, about Frank Smeese's press conference.
When I first got the news, I was disappointed, and I remember bringing it up to the group chat, the Smokes group chat, and I said, if Frank backs out as commissioner, I think we should all stand down and just step out of the league and lose, pretty much.
How much contact did Frank have with the team about this, or did he leave you guys completely in the dark?
It was darkness, and then he was like, how do you guys feel about this? And everyone gave their input, and I kind of like how he did that.
Okay, I got it. We were surprised to find out he came as close as he did to retirement, but, obviously I'm sure you guys were kind of waiting on the edge of the seat there.
We had side text. I know me and Nick Gerasi, we were like, who do you think it is? And then I mentioned that you were like, love you guys. And I was like, there's no way that Frank's leaving. But
there's tough.
We're happy.
It was a tough day. There's no question. We'll get straight into it here. Last year, you're a member of the Mothmen. You end up popping up on the COVID-19 list before game day. You miss the game. Tell me about how hard that was for you and how hard it was to break that to your teammates.
Well, you go to practice every Sunday. You know, you're there. You go through the plays. You work with the coach the whole year, and I had a pretty important position. Me and Renzo were going back on quarterback. We had a lot of trick plays.
Yeah.
And it was devastating, you know, because you work so hard. And
Well, I mean, you know, it's only a few days later you find out Renzo's also not going to play in the game. At that point, were you just like, I don't even want to know what happens? Like,
yeah, I was just sitting there waiting to hear the news. That's it.
the inevitable news.
Yeah.
You know, they ended up obviously making you proud getting out of the first round, but tough loss in the championship. But we've talked about it on the last episode. I don't know if you got to see it, but how different is that game if you and Renzo play?
Huge.
It could have been.
We could have won. Yeah.
I agree. All right, so you're now on your third coach in 3 years. Totally normal in this league. It's not like you've been passed around. You played for Coach Nick Muse, the Roadies. You played for, obviously, Holmes last year with the Mothman, and now you're on the Dan O'Shea. Tell me a little bit about each one of those guys and maybe what the differences between those guys are.
I would say with Coach Shu, the camaraderie. I felt like it was a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a great group of guys to work with, and it really felt like an underdog story.
That's what he just said.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And then going over to Mothman, which was a totally different experience. It was organized chaos. It's kind of how I want to describe it.
Coach, you know, we had him on. He strikes me as a rah kind of rally the troops guy. Is that what he's really like behind the scenes, or is that kind of the act he puts on for the camera?
He's sweet. He's nothing like that.
And then obviously Coach Dan.
I don't really know Dan outside the league.
Right.
So being drafted to that team, I was a little skeptical at first.
Sure.
But I saw that they had, you know, Frank Samisa at quarterback, so I was like, okay, things may work out.
Right.
But after being there after a couple of weeks, I'm like, this is going to be an insane team.
And to be fair, it's probably not the appropriate time to ask that question. You've spent 2 weeks with Dan. I get it. You know, you're not going to be able to compare him to those guys accurately. But is Dan the guy who's, you know, fueling the chat? Is Dan the guy who's fueling the huddle? Or is that Frank for the most part?
I would say it's Frank for the most part, but in Dan's defense, usually the quarterback on any of those teams are at the helm.
Right. Obviously, as you said, you were a little skeptical about being drafted to the Smokes, drafted by Dan. I want to ask you, how surprised were you in general to fall to the fifth round? I mean, do you think that had something to do with you not playing last year? That was ludicrous.
I think it was directly affected by not showing up to game day.
Sure.
Because everyone sees the performance during the year, but when you don't show up for game day, that you take a hit.
When I spoke to Frank Samisa after draft night about you falling to the fifth, he said they were planning on taking you in the fourth until Jesus was there. It was Dan's decision ultimately to take Jesus, and then when you fell to the fifth, Frank was the happiest guy at the draft because that's the pick he wanted to make in the fourth. With that being said, what has your time with Frank Samisa been like? What's it like to play with a guy that you know the stability at the quarterback position, you know what it's going to be as soon as you're drafted?
The playbook is number one. When you look at those plays, it's pretty incredible, and it's mainly about disruption, or disruption rather. And without giving anything up, I don't know. It's good to work with him.
We've seen you at center, and he described you after draft night as the starting center. But we've also seen that he trusts you enough to move you around all over the offense. You've been at his Y position, at his Z position, and then obviously last Sunday you were featured almost exclusively at his H-back position, you know, slot receiver, H-back, backfield. How good does it feel to know that you've already earned that trust with him?
I think it's great, and I feel like any position that I'm put at, I'll excel at. And when I'm at practice, I try and focus on my performance over team.
Tell me a little bit, you know, we got into the draft night squabbles and drama a little bit in episode 1, but apparently you were involved in some other drama on draft night. You and Holmes made a late night trip to McDonald's after some sort of punch in the face Coach Holmes delivered to you?
Yeah, I mean, he disrespects me. He thinks he knows me and my body. So we just got, sausage McMuffins at 5 a.m.
Speaking of you and your body, Coach has told us plenty about your body. What can you tell us about Coach's body?
Well, first of all, it stinks. I mean, poor hygiene. I've lived with him for many years, and I could tell you what he consumes on a daily basis, and I don't think he could say the same about me.
My assumption is alcohol is in that mix.
It's part of the balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
All right, I got two more before I let you get out of here. Obviously, you guys are the points leader right now. You've worked hard to get there. Did you have any issue? It's easy for you to say, I'm happy with the system, we're in the lead here, but did you have any issues with what went on Sunday with all the drama surrounding it, or do you think it worked out perfectly?
To be honest with you, I was confused at it when it first started happening, and I just didn't pay attention to it the whole time and just asked who led at the end. That's it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But you thought it went smoothly.
Yeah, no problems.
All right. The final question. What does LOL football mean to Kevin? I know you haven't been part of all 10 years, but you've certainly been a big part of it, and I want to know what it means to you.
Well, I'm going to call back to what Shu said, and it's just impossibility to play football with 20 people that you go to high school with, you know what I mean? And I love it.
All right. We're really happy you were on. I hope you had a good time with me, and I'd really love to have you on again.
All right, thanks. Just a quick shout-out to NerdCon Boys. That's it. They're listeners from the Midwest.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. All right, it's Frankie Nuñez. We're back with the official LOL podcast. We're down to our last segment here. We're going to do player profiles and get down to who I saw on Sunday that really stood out. And the first person, the obvious choice we have to go with, is Nick Delmonte. Nick Delmonte transitioning from the premier deep threat receiver in the league to the premier deep throwing quarterback in the league is pretty crazy stuff. Now, what we saw out of him was obvious control of a brand new playbook, which was great, but his ability to push the ball downfield without necessarily throwing a spiral once was pretty impressive. He was just hucking them downfield end over end like a punt, and guys were coming down with him. So if he can clean up those throws and maybe that throwing motion, this offense can look pretty deadly. I'd also like to point out that Ken Silver also looked really good too. Ken Silver was the only guy who wasn't running down the field deep for them. He was that short intermediate guy. And even though Delmonte wasn't attacking that area of the field often, it was good to know that if they needed to have it on third down, Ken was that guy. And that's what this offense is going to need. You can't take 9 straight deep shots and expect to win. The field will shorten every time you complete one of those. So it was good to see him go short here and there. Also, we can't not talk about how dominant the Smokes were, and that starts with Frank Samisa. That offense was piloted beautifully, masterfully, and he got everyone involved. We thought at the start of that day they were going to struggle to replace Jesus. He slid Kevin McCarthy into that spot, and it was seamless. Kevin McCarthy ran the ball well, he caught the ball well, and he was a decoy on those play actions. He had a play action fake where Justin O'Shea tagged him thinking he had the ball. It was so convincing, and Justin talked about it after game day. What we're seeing out of this offense is it's multiple, it's versatile, and it is an unbelievable sort of mesh of deep pass, short pass, run. They're doing it all. They're doing it at a high level. They had a very long 3rd and 30 where Frank threw a pump fake and a deep ball on a dime to JJ to get him out of the end zone after Nick Muse had just sacked Frank, had just pinned him deep. To show that they can get out of any bad situation like that at this early in the game, it's pretty impressive. So saw a lot out of Team Dan, out of the Smokes, saw a lot out of the Roadies. It's obvious right now, even though Holmes and the Mothman had a great week 1, it's obvious right now those teams are on a collision course for each other. Anyway, that's all the time we've got for the podcast today. We look forward to seeing you next week. As always, it's Frankie Nuñez. I want to again thank my guests for coming on, Coach Nick Muse, Kevin McCarthy. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Check the watch, drop checks like a waterfall. I be ballin', you be bowling, gutter ball. Heart so cold, these bitches getting hypothermic. But I keep the box hot, I'm kinda like a living thermos.